Thank you, Becky. And thank you for putting this together and helping me get it organized. I'm a licensed psychologist. I work with all ages, and probably very similar to a lot of you during this time, trying to figure out what we're doing and adapting to our changing lives. So tonight, what we want to talk about is how parents can help manage anxiety, both your own and your children's. And if we can help you to manage your own, that goes a long way to managing your children's. So we're going to focus a fair amount on the folks that have joined. Beginning with what is anxiety. First of all, anxiety is perfectly normal. It's a natural reaction. We've been programmed through evolution to have anxiety, and it's really the fear of the unknown. It's there to help us survive, and starts with our own perceptions, our perceptions of what we've experienced. Anxiety involves a very complex physiological response to an event. So some of us may look at the ghost as a funny thing, and then we don't even have much of a response. We may look at a homework list and be like, this is great, I have a list. Or we may be like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to finish that list. I don't even know where to begin. So it's our perception of what's happening that leads us to have anxiety. In our brain, there's a very small thing that's about the size of a walnut called the amygdala. And the amygdala is programmed to be alert, to be reactive, and to react quickly without thinking. And it wants to send us into a fight or flight response. So if the amygdala perceives anything wrong, anything scary, anything dangerous, anything that's a threat, it's going to activate our whole physiological system. And it's going to create a cascade of events. It's going to do things like dilate your pupils. We've all seen people when they're scared, their eyes get really big, makes your mouth dry, you start breathing faster, all kinds of physiological things happen. We won't go into detail. There's lots of information on the links that Becky's going to send you about that at the end of this. The antidote to anxiety is heart rate variability training. And heart rate variability by Dick Gevertz, who's somebody who does a lot of work in this area and a lot of research. I love it when he says it's a brand new idea and it's 2,500 years old. It's based on the idea that our heart beats to a rhythmic pattern. So while most of us think the heart has a very regular beat, it doesn't. It has a rhythmic beat. And when we can create that rhythmic beat and synchronize it with the rhythm of our breathing, we've actually created the antidote to anxiety. And research shows that this antidote is better than any of the pharmaceutical medications on the market. When it's put head to head against a test of any of the drugs, heart rate variability fares better. So I'm going to play a little video. I think I got to get out of here for that. Let's see how well I do with, I'm doing good. All right, so we're going to introduce heart rate variability. We got a little clip here that just talks about how important it is. It's not long at all. And then we're going to do a little practice of heart rate variability training so that you can learn it and bring it into your own lifestyle and your kids' lifestyle. Here we go.
But the heart really is an access point to our larger self that can bring in that intelligence of another dimension. So now we're starting to have a scientific understanding that these higher quality emotions that people have always associated with the heart really do affect the way the heart beats and the quality of the neural signals being sent to the brain, which it then interprets.
Heart and brain are in constant communication. The heart is doing most of the talking. Let's do an exercise now to get a better sense of how you're experiencing emotions that renew or drain you.
Okay, so that's just a little part of a clip from a company called HeartMath. And we've actually used that in our office for probably over 20 years now. And they've developed a whole system, and it's been taught internationally so many times. And we can go ahead and do that here. So let's just take a few minutes and practice heart rate variability as if we were teaching it to you in the office. And begin by resting both feet on the ground. Make sure you're in a comfortable chair or on the floor or a couch or wherever, but kind of wiggle yourself around a little bit and rest your feet on the ground and feel the connection that you have with the earth. And one of the things that we know is that the earth has a pulse. It's actually called the Schumann resonance. And that pulse is much slower than how we spend most of our daily lives. We used to spend our life at the Schumann resonance frequency, but now we've got faster lives. So when you place your feet on the ground, you're starting to connect with the earth, and you can literally start to realize the energy of that pulse. And now, if you can, just rest a hand on your belly. If you want to rest both hands on your belly, that might be more comfortable. And just begin to notice how you're breathing. Don't judge, just notice. Notice if you're breathing through your mouth, through your nose. Notice if your mind wanders. And I imagine a lot of you on this call are busy mind people. I saw there were a lot of women on the call, and that tells me that probably moms trying to figure out things for their kids, or dads. We're seeing more and more dads getting involved with their kids these days from when I first got started doing this kind of work. So notice if your mind is busy, and imagine a whiteboard that's totally cleaned off. And you can just notice if a thought comes in your mind, put it on the whiteboard and erase it. So your job is to keep the whiteboard clear. And now, as you breathe in through your nose, imagine that the air is going through your nose, down your chest, all the way to your belly. And there's a balloon in your belly. And as you breathe in, you're going to fill the balloon. And then take a nice, easy breath out through your mouth, as if you're breathing out a straw gently, and empty the balloon. And we'll do 3 cycles of that, breathing at a rate that's comfortable for you, in counting 2, 3, 4, as high as you want to count, and then breathing out, emptying the balloon. 2, 3, 4, setting your own pace, filling the balloon, keeping the blackboard, the whiteboard empty. Empty the balloon. And one more time, nice and easy, effortlessly, gently. Breathing out and emptying the balloon. And when you do this exercise effectively, what you're doing is synchronizing the rhythm of your breathing with the rhythm of your heartbeat, and you're creating an environment internally that's incompatible with anxiety. It's that simple. This is really one of the easiest things I can teach in my office, and yet the most effective. So having that experience and now that skill, you need to practice it. Having done it here might be nice. Hopefully some of you feel a little bit just slower and a little bit more relaxed than when you got on the call at the beginning. I know it changes my experience of just how I talk, the rate I speak, the rate I breathe. And then as we look, how do we apply this in our current lives amidst all of the lockdown and the quarantining and the virus? We know that the exposure to those who are infected and our immune system and the strength of our immune system impact our resistance, right? That's our risk. Just how much exposure you get versus how competent your immune system is. What contributes to immune system? Our genetics, we can't change that too much. Aging, God knows we can't change that. Any previous exposure and our lifestyle. And we can control our lifestyle. We can do all kinds of things to control our lifestyle. So that's really where we need to focus. And now we can start to develop a sense of control. Control during the COVID virus, but also control during our regular lives. Even when you're having 23 things happening at once, if you can control your breathing, you can impact the situation. So we've talked about breathing, and if we look at this list, what are things that we can do? We've got stress reduction on there. Get my, okay. And we've got exercise. We need to do these things in order to strengthen our immune system. Getting adequate sleep. It's hard to do during the virus. You know, we get involved in watching, watching too many TV shows or just staying up and watching videos or whatever it is, and we get past our normal sleep time. And the thing that we want to do at most when we're having stress is to maintain a regular schedule and regular patterns, keeping our routines. This applies for ourselves as parents, but it also applies to our kids. You know, I work with a lot of high schoolers, and they're, saying, well, it doesn't matter if I go to sleep at midnight or 2 o'clock because all I have to do is my 5 hours of homework and I'm fine anyway. Well, it does matter. And your hours that you're sleeping when it's dark are more important than your hours when it's light. So already teenagers like to go to bed later. If we can get them to not go way too late, that's going to be better for them and better for us as well. Keeping hope. It's easy to get involved in looking at what are all the negative things of this, but it's also very easy to keep hope and think about what are the positive things that we can get as a result of the quarantines and the restrictions and the changes in routine that we have. So basic things, I'm going to say them because we forget about them. Eating well is important. Getting outside, getting your vitamin D is very, very important, and getting exercise. Exercise oxygenates the brain. It helps us sleep better, and it helps us think better. Okay, so even when you're doing these things, and I'm sure many of you are already doing them, so it seems very basic, but you need to keep in mind that you're doing these things and you're helping yourself and you're helping your children when you're doing it. Things to not do, the obvious, don't smoke. We all know that, but now's a great time to do less of that or to try to quit. Recycled air, again, get outside, open your windows. In other European countries, they leave their windows open all winter. They don't even understand this idea of heat in the house. Talking about exercise, you don't want to over-exercise. Don't get yourself exhausted. Now you're compromising your immune system. So moderation in life is always very helpful. as far as what do we do with our children, I think a lot of you are on the call because you're here for your kids. And so we do need to consider the age of the child or the maturity level of the child. So we might not talk to one 16-year-old the same way as we talk to another one. If a child has a strong interest in science, they may want to talk more. I think things to keep in mind are, does the child already have anxiety that's been identified? Then for that child, we want to give more attention, or if there's previous trauma, particularly kids that have been adopted in uncertain times start to feel more uncertainty. Again, just looking at, there's no right way to do things. If there was, wouldn't we all be doing it? We would have read that book and we'd know how to raise our kids. So we have to understand that we have to try our best and be able to try to tailor it for what we think is best for the child and modify. You can always regroup and say, you know what, I didn't do that right. Let's think about a different thing. Most of all, we want to maintain calmness in the face of any of the things that are going on. Kids getting frustrated about doing homeschooling, kids frustrated about not seeing their friends. We want to listen actively, listen more than talk. Most of the time, most people love to talk. People like to talk more than they like to listen. So for our kids, let them talk and just ask them what they think. Well, what do you think you should do about that? Or what do you think is a better way to handle that? Validate their feelings, let them express themselves. We want to stay away from saying things like, well, you shouldn't think that way. Let them know it's okay to think the way they're thinking, but there are also other ways to think. Looking at the facts. Here we have, again, the calmness, help practice relaxation strategies. Hopefully you've got a strategy. That heart rate variability is really, really easy to learn and really easy to do. I'm going to go back. I'm going to drill on that because it's so important. When we teach heart rate variability in the office, we ask people to do it 10 times a day. Practice it 10 times a day, only for 2 or 3 minutes at a time. Because what you're doing is you're recalibrating your whole physiological system every time you do it. So what you're doing is kind of like turning back the stress dial throughout the day. Healthcare professionals are, among the front line of everything that's happening now, and mental health professionals fall in that category as well. All of my colleagues are working double time. They're all moved to, just like we are here, using a web-based platform. Most of them aren't using Zoom because it's not HIPAA compliant, but we have to maintain people's privacy. But it's easier now than ever to get in touch with somebody, and any of my colleagues are just readily speaking with people and helping them just on the fly through phone calls. So these are things we can do for our kids. Finishing up with, of course, being compassionate, understanding, letting them cry. We want our kids to be strong, but we also want them to be able to express their feelings. There are tons of resources on what we can do and how we can help ourselves. So these are some of the resources. I also want to address some of the questions that came in earlier. There were some good questions. Somebody asked about non-screen activities to use to reduce stress. So here I've given you some screen activities, right? There's HeartMath has lots of stuff on their website. You'll be able to download videos. They've got free things that you can access. And there's also another heart rate variability program called Unite. And their website is very accessible, easy, explains things. So sorry, somebody asked for, non-screen activities and there's 2 screen activities. But think about, what did your parents do as kids? We used to sit, when I was a teenager, we'd sit and polish our nails for hours. So kids don't do that kind of thing anymore. And that's a skill that takes a lot of time. Learning to braid hair, learning how to do French braiding, learning how to cook, picking up new hobbies. Oh, just call up your mom or your dad and ask them, what did they do? Or call your aunt, what did you do when you were kids? There were hundreds of things that we did. Helped clean the yard and build our own garden this time of year. So all this, we're back to old fashioned. There are even some people that are saying when you get into different communities that this whole shutdown is going to help us get more in touch with things that are slower, and that this is, the universe's way of slowing us down. But all these things are very healthy. The statistics of ADHD and the incidence of ADHD have increased exponentially over the last 10 years. Children that are growing up now will never have the ability to have the attention span that somebody over 40 has, because their brains are jumping around too much. Now, they will have lots more information in their brains than I will ever have. But this is a time where we can think of developing a skill that they don't have, and we can really use that to our advantage. Helping kids to stay happy, helping them to become creative and enjoy the sense of accomplishment with creating things becomes very important. A lot of kids are looking at colleges, and of course, that's all being interrupted. But doing things like really getting creative on making a map and figuring out how far is it from this college to home, and how long does it take to drive there, or how much does it cost to fly there if I'm going to go even further away, and how many visits can I have home a year, or how many times will my parents come to visit me? So really, this is an opportunity to help the older high school aged kids start to build and think about not only just, do I like this college, but what are all the things associated with the colleges? And you can even have them help you start to build a budget around the college. So there's so many learning opportunities for the kids now, and tie the learning opportunities into things that are important for them. If we gave you a car in your second year of college, how much would the gas cost to drive back and forth at $2 a gallon? So really make the learning opportunities relevant to what they are interested in. As far as the homeschooling, a couple of things: be sure to give breaks. And I think, the folks from private prep can address this better than me, and Becky, please chime in. But, in school, you get breaks. Other students ask questions. You get up and you walk around from classroom to classroom. Take those breaks. There's a lot of scientific evidence that posture is really important to mood. Changing our posture changes our moods. And we all know that, if you just all right now, I can't see you, but you can see me, right? And if you just kind of hang your head down and really get into drooping, all of a sudden you don't feel good. As opposed to, just kind of sit up nice in your chair and really kind of sit the way you're supposed to sit. It changes your mood. But more than that, it changes your cognition. And your intellectual abilities. So be aware of how your kids are sitting while they're doing the homeschooling. This kind of thing, not as good. And they're going to get tired or faster. but also take breaks. Get up, run around, take the dog out for a walk. I don't know, play with the cat, bake some cookies, do some different things. Take breaks from what you're doing and then get back with a fresh mind.
Totally. And I'm going to jump in really quick. I think those are all really great things to learn and a different way to look at it. We also will be sharing lots of blogs that we've written, our team that focuses on that as well. So we can share some blogs with specific things to do with your kids or resources. We even have some STEM activities that are offline and not online, like our coding team built. So there's a bunch of resources we'll share with people too. But definitely all of those things included. And then we just got a question about your thoughts, Angelica, on thoughts on elderberry and probiotics. If you
Oh, thanks, so dear to my heart. Okay, first of all, they are thoughts, okay? My license is a psychologist, and if I tell you or imply that you should take these things, then I'm prescribing, and I'm not allowed to prescribe. Okay, but gut health is related to brain health. And the healthier we can keep our gut, the healthier we're going to be in general, and the better we're going to think, the better our moods are going to be. So the probiotics, of course, help create good bugs in our belly. And those are important to have for digestive purposes and overall good health. So there are, what I can say is there's lots of things on the internet that indicate that both of these are good additions to a general diet. Yeah. Good question, tricky when you're a psychologist. Any other questions? Okay, maybe we have a really relaxed audience. They're all relaxed and their minds are clear and the whiteboard's empty. That could be nice. Yeah.
I'll ask another question. Are there any meditation apps, or what you did reminded me a lot of a meditation? Are there any apps that you recommend, especially for maybe people who have high school children or children that they can get the whole family involved in?
There's a nice app called Calm, C-A-L-M, and that does a lot of meditation. The Unite that we have on the screen is you have to purchase a sensor because it measures your pulse and hence your heart rhythm, but they have lots of meditation segments within that program. And the thing I like about that, I don't get money from any of these companies. They're products that we've tested, that we've used, and we recommend. But Unite has really beautiful graphics, and it can work for all ages, all the way from like 5 years old up to 90. And they have all of these companies, of course, have some nice specials going on during COVID. But and you can go on to YouTube and just look up meditation. And what you want is something that, where the voice is going to appeal to you personally. Don't listen to somebody whose voice you find irritating. There's no point for that. You just want the calmingness and that feeling. Meditation is the emptying of the mind, and heart rate variability is more like an active meditation. With heart rate variability, you're looking more to create a good physiological environment. So both very important things to do.
And I'm going to ask another one that someone wrote in before. How do you know if stress, especially for a teenager, is coming from the situation now and COVID and everyone being extra stressed, or if it's just regular stress, and do you deal with them the same way? Like, would you approach them differently?
No, I think, first of all, asking your child, if they know, what do they think is going on? Again, people want to be heard. So we don't want to make assumptions, right? How many times, have we had the personal experience where we want to say to somebody, don't you tell me what I'm thinking? I want to tell you what I'm thinking. So ask your kid what they're thinking. Ask them what they think is going on. But you don't really deal with it any differently. Stress is stress. We might have more of it right now. Or it might be coming in different ways. But really, we do want to deal with it the same way. And all those things we talked about, exercising. A lot of the teenagers I'm talking with that are on, school teams aren't getting exercise now. And they just need to get outside, and whether it's let them go for a bike ride if you can, if you live in an area that they can do that, or a walk, or get out and play basketball with them, or something. But get them active. It's important for the body to move. Okay.
That's awesome. Well, I think we answered most of the questions. We'll be sending a follow-up email that has a lot of links to different blogs and things we've talked about. But thank you so much for joining us. It is so great to have you, and we really appreciate your time and coming on and explaining all of this to us. So thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure, and thank you for doing it. I think it's a great thing you're doing for the community at whole on the large scale. So very much appreciated.
Of course.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.